On August 21st this year, two things happened in US cricket. I don't know which was first, but Congressman Lance Gooden asked the Department of Justice in the United States to investigate ACE. ACE is the acronym for America Cricket Enterprise, the vehicle that promotes Major League Cricket in the USA. On that same day, USA Cricket tore up the contract that they had with ACE. As I said, I don't know which was first. On September 23 this year, the International Cricket Council suspended the USA Cricket from its membership. And just last week, on Wednesday, October 1st, USA Cricket filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. USA Cricket is in deep crisis. And somehow it seems like this state is a perpetual thing that has been happening with the USA Cricket. As recently as 8 years ago, they were suspended from the ICC. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 cricket channel in the Caribbean. As always, I thank you for being here. I appreciate much you being here, and I look forward to your interaction as we take a deep look into USA cricket. Joining me this morning are our co-host, Basil Butcher Jr. As you know, he is a former coach of the USA female cricket team, and also Vincent Adams, who was also a member of USAC. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the Cricket Forum.
Good morning, Carlton and Basil.
Good morning, Carlton. Good morning, Vincent. Good morning to your listeners and viewers. But I want to say something for us from the start. I want to express my sincerest condolences to Bernard Julian's family on his passing, former West Indies player from Trinidad and Tobago. He passed yesterday.
My
He had
condolences.
throat cancer.
No, I didn't know that. My condolences. But matter of fact,
The guy came up in your time, Vincent.
Yeah, I
Same
played
age
against
as you.
or not. No, I played against. I played youth and
Yeah.
Chelsea. I
Yeah,
played
yeah.
Chelsea against him.
I saw him
Nice.
play. I saw him play several times at border for both Guyana, West Indies, and Trinidad and Tobago.
I always kept asking, some of my Trinidad friends about him and stuff like that.
That was probably why he did not come to
Yeah,
the
great
event in Barbados earlier this year.
Well, my deepest condolences to his family. And as usual, the Cricket Forum will do a review of his life and legacy in time to come. That is always our standard. And deepest condolences to the family. And I hope that somewhere they will find solace and be able to go beyond this chapter. Gentlemen, as I said, USA cricket is in deep crisis. It seems to me that this is always the state of US cricket. Vincent, I would like to start with you and just give us a background of your role with US cricket.
Well, and just for clarification, as a matter of fact, like you rightly said, Carlton, this year has been a perpetual problem for USA cricket. And you said 8 years ago they were suspended. No, they were expelled. We were expelled by the ICC, and after that expulsion, I was asked, as a matter of fact, to be before the expulsion, I was asked to be the liaison between USA cricket and the ICC to see if things could be corrected before the expulsion came down. I attended 2 meetings, one in Barbados, one in Dubai and one in Barbados. But it never came, nothing came out of it. So we were expelled. And with the expulsion, the ICC put together an advisory group led by Dave Richardson, a former South African wicketkeeper batsman, and their attorney Ian Higgins, so, the ICC attorney, with some local folks. Myself, Patricia Whitaker was one of those. I think it was like five of us from the US, but myself, Patricia Whitaker, who was the at one time the CWI women's cricket captain, and now she's an attorney, practicing, or used to practice in New York before retirement. But so what happened there with that group, which was between that was set up, I think, in 2016. And in 2018, it took us 2 years to set up, to rewrite the Constitution and to set up a new organization. It used to be USAC before, United States Cricket Association, and now it just become USAC, United States of America Cricket. And so that's what, and we thought in the Constitution we'd taken care of all of the problems before. We wrote the Constitution to correct the issues so that it wouldn't happen again. But let me tell you something here, Carlton, and as Basil know, it
I,
has.
I wanted to hold that point because I want to get Basil's introductory comment. So Basil, go ahead with your introductory comment, please, sir.
Well, I've been involved in cricket in the United States since 1982. Firstly as a player, then after I ceased playing, I got involved a little bit of administration in one of the leagues, two leagues I had participated in. One, firstly the Brooklyn League in New York, and then the Garden State League in New Jersey. And following that, I started coaching back in 2005, and also was a member in USA national team setups as a strength and conditioning coach / physio, starting in 2006 with the first on the 19 team going to the World Cup in Sri Lanka in 2006, and subsequently both men's teams on the 19 teams, and then was also the women's teams head coach. So I've been around the whole circuit with USA cricket, dealing from the local level, the grassroots, all the way up to the at that time USAC. For a brief period when we were suspended initially, and the ICC brought in a committee to run the cricket in terms of on the ground. A lot of Australian guys. I participated as a volunteer coach with they were doing all these combines. I had some critiques about that, but that's another story for another day. That's pretty much my involvement.
Thank you very much. I want to ask you, gentlemen, and I will start with Mr. Adams. We have been briefed on why the ICC suspended USA cricket. We fully know that. They have listed it. But, gentlemen, why did this had to happen? Or what could have done to prevent this from happening? And is Cricket West Indies trending in that direction? Let's start with you, Mr. Adams.
Well, no, it could, like I said, when we thought that we had fixed the problem with the new constitution and everything else, and it didn't work out that way. Again, it's all about governance. So this year was in the making, by the way. It didn't start, from the few months or days ago when we heard it. This year has been brewing. We had it's just that the ICC was pussyfooting around this whole issue. I've seen the wrongdoings in the organization. As a matter of fact, I headed the committee that appointed board members. I was also in the cricket committee that looked after the cricket operations. And when I saw what was going on in terms of the autocratic nature of the board and the splitting of the board, this is years ago. I even wrote letters. I and Patricia and others wrote letters to the ICC asking them to take action. and they were pussyfooting because, of course, the Olympics was coming up in the U.S. I guess they didn't want for bad PR, and then, of course, not the Olympic, the World Cup, and then the Olympics in 2028. They didn't want bad PR on that too, because we're going to be hosting the Olympics. And by the way, this is very important, and why the Olympics is so important. When they had set up this advisory group that formed in the USAC in 2016, the one thing that we heard every single day, that the United States is the next frontier for cricket, because the rest of the world has been saturated. And the way that they're going to be promoting USA cricket to make it popular in the USA was the 2028 Olympics. So the ICC has been advocating. They work very hard with the Olympic committees to get cricket into the Olympics, probably mainly because USA, they want to make USA the next cricket market of the entire world. So that is why they were pussyfooting around, as far as I'm concerned, not to take action earlier, despite all of the complaints that were coming in. And so that's why we in this. It was just poor governance, and we probably could go into some depth in some of the government. Within the last 7 years, we've changed out, what is that, 4 or 5 CEOs? So that's the, we could get into some more details as to specific.
I want to ask you, Mr. Vincent, were you one of the 4 directors that wrote a letter to the ICC?
No, I was not a director. I was on the NGC committee. After we came off, as a matter of fact, after the committee that set up USAC, I left, and I left, and I had no intentions to come back until I was asked to come back in 2020. So I was gone for 2 years, and then I came back in 2020 and was heading the governance committee that appointed board members. I was not a board member because I didn't want to be anyway, but I was the head of that committee that appointed a board member. And I don't know if you want me to start getting into some very serious issues here, Carlton.
I want you to, Mr. Vincent, but before you do, I want to ask you 2 questions. You said that the board was autocratic and it was splitting.
Yes.
What led you to those conclusions?
Because what had happened? Well, I'm definitely going to start getting into the main issues. Some of the things, I think probably the first error that we made as a committee was to as part of the membership and the administration of cricket, was to bring in softball cricket into the mix. So now a lot of the people governing who are in the board they came from softball, which is a totally different thing. But we thought we wanted as many members as possible, so that was accepted. However, we got into a situation where those board members, and one of the most egregious act was the racism, Carlton, and this is not an overstatement. The racism, the same Patricia Whitaker. There are 10 members on the board, and all 10 members are, guess what? Or let me put it a different. There's no member on that board who was a black. Patricia Whitaker, the most qualified, as far as I was concerned, board member. Again, she was the captain of the CWI, the women's captain. She is she's an attorney in New York. When Patricia became a member of the board, because she was appointed as the highest qualified unanimously by the committee which I chaired, Patricia got on that board. They got rid of Patricia immediately. The chairperson went to lawyer to find out how could he get rid? How could they get her off the board? Well, the board started splitting. They suspended 3 of them, Patricia and 2 Indians with her, because, like I said, all of the board members were basically were Indians, and then 10, except for Patricia. They got rid. They suspended them for some frivolous nonsense. So unconstitutionally suspended. They went and they got lawyers. They reinstated the two Indians, and on to today have not reinstated Patricia. Imagine every single Carlton. Basil has been talking about this too. Every single team since USAC was formed, which was totally different on the USAC that got expelled, the under 13, under 15, under 19, under 23, there's not a single black. And the national team has won in Aaron. So that's the entire board members, the coaches. They got rid of the black coaches. They got rid of the black selectors. So all of the top administration, they were like five of us who were not Indians. They got rid of all five of us. And so the whole cricketing community and players had, they were just exterminated from cricket in the USA. So what has happened? The entire
So let us bring in Basil here now, Mr. Vincent. When I say Mr. Vincent Company, I'm reminded of the Manchester City United footballer. So no hard feelings, Mr. Adams. It's just that Vincent Company came to my mind. Let's bring in Basil here now. Basil,
next time, please say. Next time, I prefer you say Saint Vincent.
Okay, Saint Vincent. Basil, we heard what Mr. Adams has been saying, and he's coming from the bottom of the sea. And so you heard the saying that if fish comes from the bottom of the sea and tells you that whale down there, you have to believe. So he talk about autocracy. He talk about the splitting of the board. He talk about the limited number of non-Indians on the team, and we saw in the recently concluded West Indies under-19 tournament, the USA had two teams in that tournament. While I could not identify any non-Indians on my television screen, just checking the name of the players that are made up of those two teams, there was no Caribbean name, no Caribbean ethnicity name jumped out at me. I'm not saying that they weren't there, but none jumped out at me. I want you to take those things into consideration as you react to what Mr. Adams said and give us your own views.
So, look, me and Vincent discussed this many times, and what he said earlier about the mistake they made initially of bringing softball cricket as part of the governance of USA cricket, that was a mistake there. But I would go even a little further back. I thought that the constitution that USAC had in place, that ICC had some issues with, I thought that constitution was a good framework from which we could have built upon, because within the context of that constitution, we had a situation where, because look at the United States, it's a huge country, and you had regions. So each region had a regional board that would take care and organize cricket and so on and so forth, govern the cricket in that region, because a central body is too hard to do that. And I think that was one of the mistakes that was made in the formulation of the new constitution also. That should have been built up more, so that those regional boards, for example, would have had more autonomy in terms of which we did not have when USAC was in place. So that's number one. And I could go back, and I think it's the very first time, because I had invited Vincent to come to a USAC meeting at the airport there at JFK. I think this is like 2010 or somewhere around that time. And at that meeting, they had all of these Indian guys lauding their academies. We exposing all these youngsters and so on and so forth. Well, I had a good view because also I was the under 19 coach for the Atlantic region, which would consist of the states from New Jersey to Virginia, every state in between. I coached that team. So I went to the national tournaments year after year. I saw the composition of the teams. And after these guys made their presentation, I got up and I went directly to them. I said, I hear all of y'all talking about your academies, but I don't see no white guys in your academies. I don't see no black guys. I don't see no other ethnicities. You're only peddling it to your people. And the other thing about these academies, it's cost prohibitive. So if you don't have a parent that has the financial resources, thinking about learning to play the game and so on here is a non-starter. And what I see is going to be happening here, we're going to have a hierarchy in cricket where we're going to see pretty much all complete South Asian teams. I sound this alarm. This is about 15 years or around that time, right? Because after I said that, you could have dropped a pin in that meeting and you would have heard the pin. Not one of them could come back at me because they know what I was talking about. And look what has happened since, right? I remember when the US women's team was going to the World Cup on the 19 team, and some friends of mine in the Barbados, a Bajan chat, asked me, Butch, is this an Indian A or B or C team? I said, my friends, this is how the cricket is structured in this country. And I would also add this, because for many years, the guys in USAC, when we would critique them about making the structure better and so on and so forth, one of the things they always used to say, let me warn y'all, if these folks become in charge of the cricket, you ain't gonna see nobody looking like we around the cricket again, right? I acknowledge that, but I still felt you needed to build an organization that had checks and balances, so you would be able to withstand when what Vincent described as the authoritarian and autocratic decision making that was going on unchecked, because we didn't have that. And then again, this softball thing, those guys don't know nothing about cricket. All of them are clueless. Yeah, they like cricket, full stop. All due respect to them. They don't know nothing about cricket, right? And when you're going to have people like that governing your cricket, this is the disaster that you're going to get, we're seeing today.
Basil, react to the two teams from the USA that played in the West Indies under 19 tournament.
No, look, we take, as you know, me and my friend Lyndon Fraser, the coach, we take teams to the Garfield Sobers tournament every year, right? And on those two teams that played for the US, the first team, 7 of the players on that first team squad was with us in Barbados last year. And on the second team squad, 4. Not surprising. Every year, when we taking the youngsters, we might have one black kid. This year, lucky for us, because most of those guys were not available, we had to bring in some youngsters from Guyana. And so we had a few non-Indian guys on our team this year because of that. But generally, the picking is only from that because look, we have to look at reality, because like I just said before, is these academies are the only place where a youngster has the ability to go and learn to play the game in a structured thing and so on and so forth. It's cost prohibitive to working class family. A lot of our Caribbean people have working class. They don't have the funding, and then they're gonna say another thing. They're gonna say, wait, why gonna even try to spend the kind of money? Where my child gonna go with this cricket, right? Whereas the Indians, they got more disposable income, so they are able to do it, and those academies are marketed to them, and so on and so forth. So therefore, what you have playing all the youth cricket for the most part are South Asians.
Let me,
John, comment. Yeah, go
Carlton,
ahead, Vincent.
yeah,
Yes.
let me, because I think that's I agree with Basil with this academy thing. It's big business, and a lot of the cricketing officials have interest in these academies. Okay, so but I think it's a cop out to say that that's the reason. That's part of the reason. Because let me give you a couple of examples. I know Carlton know there's a young cricketer by the name of Achilles Brown from Barbados. Achilles Brown is probably, in my opinion, probably the best young cricketer in he's a U.S. citizen. Achilles Brown went to the trials in California, and Achilles Brown excelled in that trials, and he did not even make the top 28. There were 3 young Indian players who made it. Achilles Brown, for the numbers, he batted 4 times. He made 140 something runs. There was a player who batted twice and made a duck in both innings. He made duck. He played in front of Achilles. Another player total like 69. He played in front of Achilles. And the allegation is that those players were coached by a member of the board. So they got in. Achilles Brown could not make which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. He could not make that team and the top 28, but he made the West Indies team. He made the West Indies. He was in the squad. Here's another thing about that tournament here, Carlton. When they had about like 114 players or 120 players and coaches, they got a notification, written notification saying that there will be food provided at all 3 venues where they were playing, and the food will be Indian food. And those who do not want Indian food are on their own. They can go buy their own food. If that is not blatantly racist, I don't know what else is. That same Fraser that Basil just talked about, Leonard Fraser was a highly qualified coach. When we were, I was in the cricket committee, we wanted a coach. Fraser applied, and so we were saying he was the highest qualified. He was not selected, and they selected an Indian guy who did not, his visa, he did not have any qualifications whatsoever. They removed Darlington, a Guyanese, who was a highly qualified coach, as the coach of the U.S. team. They removed him without even telling him that he's removed as the coach, and replaced him with an Indian coach who also probably did not, as far as I know, did not even have the immigration papers. So I hear the academy thing where it's only for the rich Indians, but I think that's only a part of it, because they're just blatantly excluding blacks from participating in cricket in US.
And let me just add to that. When I talk about that, I'm talking about a bunch of people in terms of the numbers just playing the game to learn the game and so on. I know of all the cases Vincent cited. So because look, I give you an example. When I started coaching, me and Fraser, we had a youth program in New York and coaching youngsters, and most of the youngsters were all Caribbean, learned the game and were excelling in the game. Many of them went on to play for US under 19. So it's those kind of programs we need to have, so we can span the area wide in terms of bringing in talent to play the game. But right now, the way the structure is set up, there's nothing of that you can bring in the youngsters. And then because our leagues are, just to use your Jamaican term, curry goat cricket, because all of them is a joke. None of them are serious about promoting and developing the game, because the leagues can play the role in starting coaching programs in their areas. Because I told this when I came back from the World Cup in 2006, was the first time I attended our league meeting in New Jersey here. And there I was asked to get up and speak about my experience and so on. And one of the things I said to them, this is 2006, mind you, I said to them, I said, gentlemen, most of you in 5 years or so are not going to be playing this cricket anymore. We need to have young people coming up behind us. And because many of you in here have access to the schools because your children go to the schools, we as a league need to talk about developing a coaching program that we could start teaching these young people to play the game. And eventually, these are the young people that are going to replace and come into the clubs and so on and so forth. Everybody gave me a standing ovation, and that was it.
Thank you very much, Basil. I
Yeah, let me
want to,
quickly, Carlton, quickly. One more thing. Let me add just
sure.
quickly to this. Even getting to you talked about the teams that you saw that is all Indian. Well, guess who select those teams are the selectors. All of the selection panels are Indians. In one specific case, I was in a panel that selected Joan Serrano, who played cricket for the West Indies and the West Indies women cricket. She's from Grenada. She came up here. She played cricket and involved in cricket. Picked her to lead the selection panel for the women. She was removed after a couple of months by these people, removed without even telling her that she was removed, to get her out of the way. But those are the things that are happening, that have to be rooted out, and hopefully, and we thought that we rooted them out, but we failed miserably. So I don't know, wherever we go, I hope that these things are taken into considerations as lessons learned, and to fix them
At the
permanently.
opening ceremony for the Pakistan West Indies series in Florida, of the 30 children that participated in that opening ceremony, I counted only 3 of ethnic Caribbean American, Black American origins. So that goes to shows that these academies are largely comprised of persons of Indians descent. My question to you, gentlemen, because Cricket West Indies did have first go of managing and structuring USA cricket. Why, gentlemen? Why did you gentlemen sit down and allow this disparity to happen? What are
Uh,
you doing to level the play field? Basil,
uh,
it looks like you want to go first this
yeah,
time.
I don't think I sat down. um, I I can tell you the amount of hours of my time even going into my pocket here in New Jersey, hours on meetings that talking to knuckleheads who know nothing but cricket. All they concerned about is for their children to play, and battling those battles for almost over 10 years. All the groundwork, the things we wanted to put in place. Every I'll give you, for example, here in New Jersey, we were actually the ones who started the first young junior league, right? And for whatever reason, um, politics, the guy who was heading got ousted from the position of of our regional chairman and so on, and that went asunder. And the other thing, there were always external forces pulling at us. We never had the kind of resources that, say, the South Asian community would have, right? But so that fell by the wayside. There were other things we had in the works, because we're always looking at this thing from a community perspective and involving all these, bringing in children from all over. Even me, for example, I used to go to high school, Orange High School, after school and coaching, and pretty much all the kids were non-Indian. All of them of Caribbean background, or Black American. I remember the first day I went there and we coaching, and all these Black American kids watching on this. What's this stuff these guys doing? And several of them came over and said, "Yo, man, can I have a go?" And these guys, so but unfortunately, because of my time, and we did not have the infrastructure in terms of more coaches, that fell by the wayside, because the athletic director of the high school, she was so enthusiastic. But I have my own, I'm self-employed, I can't always make that time, so that kind of fell by the wayside. But those are the things. The questions was raised. I'll give you this. We had a meeting just after we came back from the World Cup 2006. Big meeting, all the USAC officials and guys from all over the country. and because the fire was hot for youth cricket, because youth cricket was very in its infantile stages at that time here in the United States. And I remember a very sobering thought was put over at the time of that meeting. Gentlemen, it's all good and well that we want to develop this youth cricket, but firstly, we don't have enough coaches in this country. At that time, there were very few coaches in the United States. We don't have the officials, the umpires, and so on that's going to be umpiring these games. We don't have the facilities in terms of grounds, because we already shortchanged for grounds as it is. There's always fights to get grounds in over here, right? So, and those were the steps that we did not do in a systematic way to create that infrastructure for that, which would have been able to result in if the academy thing started, yeah, you could have the academy, but we would have had a youth infrastructure in place that academies would have to toe the line to be part of that youth infrastructure, but that never got developed.
Mr. Adams, what your thoughts are? Is it, as Basil said, really the Caribbean population in the US are just not involved in the cricket in the numbers that they should?
Well, and it takes a program. The program, and when the ICC, when we set up that group, the one thing that we did not anticipate, or what we overlooked, was this racist aspect of it, and the kind of segregation in cricket. As a matter of fact, the whole intent when we set up this institution, the USAC, the new USAC, the whole intent, and that's the way the Constitution was written, was for us to go into the inner cities, because our logic was that if you look in the United States, baseball and basketball, where are most of those athletes? Where do they come from? The inner cities. So our whole focus at the time was to go into the inner cities without even consideration of race, because USAC, and this is why I think we overlooked something that was a big mistake. On the USAC, there was no racial disparity. The board was probably split half and half between Indians and blacks. The players, if you look at the teams, were half and half. So we never said, well, okay, we had a racial problem. And as a matter of fact, the cricket was run by a black president at the time. So we never thought that this here would have been an issue with us. But the whole intent was to go into the inner cities, and that's where we were going to get the talent. We had started. Another thing we were planning on doing, and even set up the program for it, was to get cricket into the curricula, into the schools, into the gyms, playing with softball, and to get it part of the recreational program, the PT program into schools. All of that was what we intended to when we set up this new constitution. But then, of course, it doesn't matter what institutions you have. And you have the type of folks who got elected, and then their interest was something totally different, and violated the entire constitution to make it dictatorial, where they have control, they're looking after their interests, and they could care less about the constitution, and even breaking the American laws, the United States of America laws. They've been breaking the USAC constitution, and the constitution, all of the rules and everything that governs sports in the United States of America. So that has been our frustration, that we never saw this coming. But I think we had everything in place. And by the way, in terms of my personal involvement, because when I left, I was so confident in that new constitution that I was not involved for like 2 years until I was asked to come back. Please come back and be part of the cricket. And then when I saw what was happening, I was fighting like hell. And Carlton, I can share the letters that I've written. Not only I've written to the United States Olympic Committee, to the ICC, been writing over and over, telling them, explaining to them what was going on. And they've not been taking any actions. As a matter of fact, that's the reason why I decided to resign. But even though I resigned, I never stopped. I still kept my my advocacy and criticism openly. I've even been on Andrew Mason show a couple of times. But I've kept up my writing, but it's just the frustration that caused me to resign, and I will still keep talking and fighting
But
Carlton,
over it.
gentlemen, let me
something.
ask this question, Basil,
Mhm.
because I believe the suspension of USAC is an ideal opportunity for all stakeholders to achieve equity in the USAC. So, what are the steps that should be taken now to bring back that equity in USAC? You mentioned going into the inner city, which I think is fine. You mentioned having a curriculum in the schools, and those things were thrown out because of the leadership of USAC. How is it that those things now can now go back into the policies of USAC?
Let me just say this. I'll say this quickly. Talk about the Caribbean. One of the problems, and this is going to be a critique to my Caribbean people, we cannot work together in this country. That is the major reason why, or the cricket, because we cannot work together, right? We are, if a Jamaican is at the top, the Beijing will say, why you gotta be a Jamaican, or whatever, vice versa and so on. We never could work together as a group, and that's a problem for us as Caribbean people in the United States. So I just want to put that out there. However, in terms of what you're asking directly, ICC will have to be honest. They were not an honest broker when they came in the first time. Look, myself and Lyndon Fraser are the only two coaches in this country at the time when they came that coached from under 15 all the way to senior and women. We knew the landscape of women of cricket in this country like the back of our hands. ICC comes in to do a review and speak to stakeholders, and never once called me. Or Lyndon Fraser. When I was speaking to the then regional, the guy was a regional manager for ICC Americas, and talking to him, and I said, how come y'all did all this? Y'all didn't even contact me. He can make us tell me they didn't know about me. I said, how you couldn't know about me? I've been in USA national team setups and all of those things, and you didn't know about me? Obviously, you wasn't doing your homework. I told him that straight to his face, because y'all came away with conclusions that were not relevant to the landscape. You see? So unless ICC this time around gonna call in people like myself and Lyndon Fraser to be part of the discussion as to how we have to move forward, it's gonna be null and void again.
Okay, but okay, Basil. All right. Let me.
Let me
You want to say something?
let me answer. Yeah. Let me in terms of the question as to how. And I don't know if you know, but I worked at the highest level of the U.S. government. So I believe in institutions, and I believe, without question, I know how things get done in the U.S. And the one thing, if I had to do it again, which is again, we did not anticipate this was going to be such a major problem. We thought it was going to be an easy going, is to get political sponsorship. Like those same inner cities that I'm talking about, we've got to go there to the local politicians and convince them and sell them cricket. And then they would be our sponsor to getting these things at the grassroots level and getting it. And it's not only for us to get started, but then they would be responsible for
Mhm.
oversight also, to make sure that we do not deviate from the laws and everything else, which is what's happening is the lawlessness. I'm telling you, Carlton, there's sheer lawlessness. You would not believe the number of laws, the IRS laws that we break, even with this whole arrangement with ACE. That's a discussion in itself. But to me, what we need is political sponsorship now, and this is nothing different than what is happening in, like, say, in the Caribbean or in any other cricketing country. The government is deeply involved in terms of influence, but the government here in the United States is totally not involved, of course, because cricket is not
But
their thing.
let me ask
But
you
we
this, Mr.
go
Adams.
to them.
Have you gotten in touch with Lance Gooden, who wrote to the Department of Justice, asking the Department of Justice
No,
to investigate Ace?
No,
Do
I
you
have
think
not. I
that
have not.
you could probably get in touch with him and share your views, both you and Bobby, Basil?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, why not? I
Lance
definitely
Gooden,
wouldn't mind doing it.
is a congressman.
Yep.
You touch on Ace. And again, for those who just joining, ACE is and we are coming to your question shortly. We'll take a few questions. ACE is the American Cricket Enterprise. They are responsible for promoting, organizing, and running Major League Cricket. As it stands now, gentlemen, we may not have any Major League Cricket next year. But let's ask you, gentlemen, this question. You can answer that part too. When this agreement was signed, Mr. Adams, between ACE and USAC in 2019, were you in agreement with this? Were you in agreement with this contract? And if you were, why? And if you were not, why?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I was gone in 2019. I was in Guyana at the time for 2 years. When I came back in 2020 and I saw that contract, I was livid. As a matter of fact, I wrote a paper on the comments. And the most fundamental issue with that contract, we are what is called a 501c3 organization,
No profit.
which is USA. It's a non-profit. It's a not-for-profit organization. And in a not-for-profit organization, you cannot allow another profit-making entity to control your organization, especially when it comes to the financing. Is in that contract that we signed with them, they're controlling USA Cricket. They're the ones who are paying our players in their contracts with USAC. They're the ones they've got to give approval, Carlton. When we provide contracts with our players, they've got to give approval to each of those players. So they're controlling cricket. They decide they're taking 95% of whatever profit is made. We're getting 5. Their financial people are handling our books, and there are many other atrocities. But yes, fundamentally, we're violating even our 501c3. And I wrote uh, uh, pages of criticism as far as every single line or every single article in that contract. I criticized when I got back in 2020. But like I said, they weren't listening. The organization we have, they really don't care. They were going along their merry ways. But what was funny, the board, or most of them, some of the members of the board and were in bed with each other. So they were supporting each other until now things are starting to fall apart. They're getting pressure from the ICC because now the ICC is worried because the USOPC, could you imagine, Carlton? You know what the USOPC, the United States Olympic Committee, because they have got to sanction you before you can participate in the Olympics, which would be the ICC's worst nightmare if the America does not go to the Olympics. Because remember what I told you, the main objective was to promote cricket, to get cricket advertised through the 2028 Olympics. So the USOPC wrote to the USAC and said, "You guys are dysfunctional." They told the board that you're dysfunctional, and you would stand a very little chance of getting any sanction from USOPC. So that is what has driven the ICC now to start taking action, because they see, hey, we might not be able to satisfy our objective of going to the Olympics. So that's what's taking place here now with ACE. But that contract from day one, that contract has been, as far as I'm concerned, illegal.
Thank you very much, Basil.
Yeah. Look, I never got to see the contract, the whole contract, but I got to see excerpts. And just from looking at the excerpts when I was coming into place, I raised the same concerns regarding that contract that Vincent talked about. that how could you have a other entity come in and run in your organization, right? That right away was a contradiction. Uh,
Basil, just a
right. Well,
profit-making entity running a
I'm not even
non-profit.
getting in because
That's the
at the time
key.
I am not as versed with the 501c3 laws and so on. Vincent is way more versed on that. But just the mere contradiction that somebody outside of you, because they provide you with funding, they could tell you how you got to do everything. To me, right away, that's a contradiction on its face, right? And amongst the other things. So I was against that. But you see, Carlton, I would say this. One of the reasons why cricket has the cricket organization has gotten away with skirting U.S. laws is because cricket as a sport is not part of the sporting ecosystem that
Yep.
governs
Yep.
sports and
Yep.
the laws and all those things. When you go and see baseball, basketball, everybody is in the U.S. sporting ecosystem. Cricket has never been there, so cricket has been getting away with wild west behavior. Had we been in that
Yep.
ecosystem, that would be out, and that's why it's like what Vincent talked about, the USOC, because that's it. Once we get into that ecosystem, a lot of this behavior would not be able to permit it because you will lose your accreditation as an entity, not even from ICC, but from right here to operate as an accredited sporting body with the U.S. Olympic Committee, especially more so now that cricket is an Olympic sport. So you have to ascribe to those values to be an accredited association in the United States.
That's why I love the fact that Mr. Lance Gooden have written to the DOJ, and I really hope that you gentlemen will
Yeah,
speak to him. Good,
yeah, I think,
good mo-
and I don't think he did that out of a vacuum. I think people, whichever district he's a congressman, people who are involved in cricket in that tier, wrote to
Yep.
him as a congressman in that area, and because that's the other thing, where you have to have some influences with your congress people, depending where you live, you get them to write in, where people like Vincent and so on would be of great help to him, is that Vincent could provide context and all of those things in detail as to the skullduggery that has been going on that will bolster an investigation into Ace.
I think that his involvement, he getting involved, will bring about a paradigm shift in
I
USA cricket.
I
I
hope
hope
so.
so.
I hope so.
Good morning, Mr. Casanova. Good morning, Christopher Bristol, John P. Nichols, Steve Russell, Jamor Sumal, all the lot. I saw you guys here, Mr. Vincent, were you an environmental engineer, sir?
Yeah, and petroleum and geological.
Okay, you see,
Yeah.
people know you, sir. When you
Yes,
come
yes.
here, people always know
Well,
you.
Carlton, Dr. Vincent Adams, he's a well, high. He didn't want Tootie Horn, but he was at the highest levels of the U.S. government working in the energy department. So,
Okay.
so he is well known, particularly amongst our diaspora Guyanese community and maybe other Caribbean diaspora community.
Okay,
Well
it's a
known.
pleasure to have met you, sir. Um, Mr. No, John P. Nicol, my my name is, as you know, Basil, and
Yes. That's Sammy's
yeah,
lawyer. Sammy's lawyer.
yeah. On Thursday, I said to John P. Nicol that I'm becoming very worried because over the last 2 weeks or so, John P. Nicol has been agreeing with me very often. So I'm becoming very, very worried. But he's asking the question that if Johnny Graves, some person said Greaves, some said Graves, the former CEO
Yeah.
of West Indies Cricket, did he contributed to this dysfunctionality in USA cricket? Should he have played a bigger role? Does Cricket West Indies still have autonomy over USA cricket? That's the question I want to ask.
Look, Carlton.
Yeah.
I think Cricket West Indies has done a poor job in terms of shepherding and giving oversight to cricket administration here in the United States, right? I remember, going back, this might have been around 2013 or something like that. Tony Howard, who was, I think he was once the COO of West Indies Cricket Board at the time, right? It wasn't Cricket West Indies yet, I don't think. He was the person, whenever USAC had a meeting, he would come and sit in the meeting to make sure that they was following proper cricket values and those kinds of things, right? But with the dissolution of USAC, that went out the window, right? So I think those are things that West Indies Cricket Board could have been doing to make sure that these guys are following the right way, processes in when you're talking about developing cricket and promoting cricket in the country for all asunder in that nation.
Mr.
Well, what had happened? What had happened, and Basil is correct. There was a some type of an arrangement, if you will, where this was in USAC days, where Cricket West Indies would have been like a godfather, looking over and mentoring USA Cricket. As a matter of fact, the CWI president before Shallow,
Julian Hunt.
no,
Kerry,
not
Kerry,
Mitchell,
Kerry?
no,
Canberra.
no, man.
Julian Hunt.
Before
Dave
Cameron,
Cameron.
David, when we were in the ICC committee, when that committee was put together, Dave Cameron, as far as I attended 2 of those meetings to have his input. So he was involved in developing USAC, and the whole the tacit understanding
Mr.
and
Adams,
agreement was
Mr. Adams,
that US.
please
Yes.
start the point about Dave Cameron again. We lost you at the start of the point.
Oh, no, Dave Cameron, when you remember I told you about this committee that I was on, and Patricia Whitaker, the
Dr.
two West
Dotson.
Indian. But yeah, Dr. Dotson, yeah, he came in. Yeah, that's right, Dr. Dotson. But Cameron was involved. He attended, as I recall, 2 of those meetings with us to have his input. So he was involved in putting USA Cricket together. He had his input. We even had I remember the guy from the head guy from the ICC. I can't remember I could never pronounce his name at the time. Srinivasa. Yeah. He came in one of the meetings with Dave Cameron too. So Dave had his input, and the understanding, tacit or not, I don't think there was any agreement signed, but the understanding was that was the role of CWI, that they were going to play a part. But to me, effectually, it never happened. They were, with this current organization, they were conversations. They were unofficial as far as I'm concerned, conversations that occurred between certain members of the board and I guess Johnny Greaves and the rest of those folks at CWI. But again, I do not think that the CWI played the meaningful role that it should have been playing. I'm not blaming Johnny Greaves or any individual, but I know there were conversations that sometimes I even deem it inappropriate at times between Johnny Greaves and members of the USA Cricket
Thank you.
Board.
Very much.
Carlton, I just want to add on to that, because this is how I met Chris Derrin. Actually, Chris Derrin and Julian Hunt at our election, USAC election, because West Indies Cricket Board was doing oversight. And I was a delegate for my league to vote. And Chris Derrin and Julian Hunt were present. That's when I met both of them. Because of they played a role. Chris Derrin, that is, played a role at that time in the formulation of the then constitution that came about in 2008, right? So that relationship, but it is something that has been, it was more laissez-faire. We never really had that concrete oversight. from the West Indies Cricket Board to our cricket organization here in the United States.
Thank you. As
Look,
you use the word
for
laser
example,
fear there, Basil, it just came to me that what is Cricket West Indies doing that is not laser fear? Cheese, cheese.
but for example,
Yes, sir.
Carlton, for example, Carlton, you remember I told you that I appeared on the Mason
Yes, you did.
show, right? The Andrew Mason show, twice. And as far as I can recall, I think Johnny Graves was on that was there also. He heard the things that I said, but guess what? It just went apparently went through one ear and come through the next, because that was the reason why I wanted to be on that platform to especially to get the ears of the people CWI and West Indians, because outside of the South Asians, we are the other community that participate. USA cricket is made up of South Asians and people of West Indian origin. But now people of West Indian origin are shut out completely. So when I was on that platform with Andrew Mason, Johnny Graves was there as far as I recall, and he heard, but nothing came out afterward, not a word. So,
Are people of West Indian origins shuttered away, or is it that we gave up? But then you don't have to answer. Here's
No,
what
no.
Cheeseman.
I'll tell you what happened, Carlton.
Here is what Cheeseman is asking.
Okay.
We said that the teams are made up largely of South Indians, but are they enough? South Asians. Sorry, South Asians. But
mostly, hold on, Basil, but
Yeah,
predominantly,
it's pretty much Indians,
Indians.
because there ain't too much. I can't recall anybody as a Pakistani origin playing cricket right now for the US women's team. But at the men's level, they do have some guys of Pakistani origin.
But the question Cheeseman is asking, are there any Caribbean ethnicity youngsters really playing the cricket to be a part of this program? Are they really performing to be a part of this program? What's his name? What's this guy that from Jamaica name that used to open and he's getting bigger each day? And as he gets bigger,
Stephen Taylor.
Stephen Taylor is putting on so much weight and his score is going down. Are we really doing the things that we need to do to play? What about Aaron Jones? Is he contributing significantly enough to be in the squad? What about the children? Are there enough children from West Indies origin playing the game? So how can we now say they are not in the squad?
Hold on, Basil. Let me take this.
How can we now say that they are not in the squad when they are not actually playing the game? And the few that is playing is gaining more pounds than the scores that they are making.
But Carlton again, it comes down to the governance of cricket. You remember I told you what the intent of the ICC was to get cricket into these communities, etc. If these people are not, they're discouraging. Not only are they not taking it into these communities, they're discouraging black folks from playing cricket. Remember what I said before in USAC? This was not a problem in USAC. But when people see, for example, I mentioned Achilles Brown, a young cricketer who I think is the best young cricketer in the United States, is not even getting picked. When you go to the trials and they tell you basically, we do not want you. When we're telling you, we're only going to cook Indian food for y'all. And if you don't like it, you go get your own food. That's telling you that you do not want them. When you're removing all of the black officials from the governance structure, when all of the teams that you're seeing are all Indians, that never used to happen before. It suddenly started happening. So when as a black player, when you see as a young player, you have nobody to look up to now, because even that Stephen Taylor and them, who knows what they've been going through as black players in the team, and Aaron Jones and them. So there's no encouragement or facilitation of having these players being part of your system. That is the problem. They completely wipe them out, and it is intentional based on those actions that I'm telling you. It's
I
intentional.
want to
I
put
want
it
to
to you
say
before you
something.
answer, Basil, because I want to say this. Uh, some of this is our doing. I fully understand the point that you are making, Dr. Adams. And we here, you, Basil, this wonderful community that is known as a Cricket Forum, we all want to support our West Indies, our fellow Caribbean brothers in the United States. But how can we really support them when they themselves are not aligning with us? And by that, let me give you an example. Two quick examples. I can never get a Jamaican cricketer to come on this channel. So how can I support a Jamaican cricketer? Yes, I support him when he's playing for Jamaica because he's on the field and I want Jamaica to win.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't come on my channel, I'm going to support you when I ask you and you say no. How am I going to big you up?
Mm-hmm.
Another example, I asked Stephen Taylor to come and have an interview. The response was, talk to my agent. How now am I supposed to say Stephen Taylor was in the USA team? How can he get the support of this channel when that was his
Yeah.
reaction?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm asking him to do an interview to highlight him. But if you're going to say,
Yep.
talk to my agent, how am I going to highlight you? As Cheeseman is asking, when the cricket is playing in New York and in South Florida and Atlanta and all these places, and you see the Caribbean ethnic persons going to these matches, are they taking their children with them? No, but they are prepared to pay $50 an hour or $100 an hour for those same children to learn football, but they want the cricket coaching to be done free of cost.
Right.
Are we really helping ourselves?
Look, as I said, um, we have to have programs that are in the community, um, and and which there aren't any. But you have, like for example, in New York City, you have there's a schools tournament, high schools play cricket tournament. Because actually one of the youngsters that went with us to Barbados of Guyanese extraction, Indian youngster of Guyanese extraction, he plays the cricket in the schools, so that's how he got into cricket. And there are lots of them because predominantly in the schools cricket in New York is Caribbean children of Caribbean extraction. No, it is not translated from there to, because there's nothing outside of the schools thing for them to continue development. I had made suggestions in the past where I said, I said to them, I said to the guy, I say, see all these youngsters in the schools, we need to have in the summer, we need to have youth competitions in New York for these youngsters. We create X number of teams. We have proper coaches with each team because these youngsters are not getting the right coaching because it's PE teachers for the most part in the school system. So that when they go back to school the next year, you would see a higher level competition and that continues going up. But I don't know, for whatever reasons, it never got taken on seriously of discussing these things with people, you know. And I would say this again, Carlton, the main problem with us Caribbean people, we cannot work together. And if we can't, and because we cannot work together, is why the cricket amongst us is not going anywhere. We it's a because I mean, just on the sheer numbers of Caribbean people, for example, that lives in New York City. I'm just talking about New York City. We should have a multiple of turf wickets, turf grounds in New York City if we could work together, because every mayoral candidate would have to grovel of our feet by the sheer numbers of us in New York. But what? We can't work together.
Yep.
Mr.
I
Adams?
think, Carlton, I think the political connection is so critical. Basil just mentioned it. The mayor, one of the things that we discussed again in the when we had this ICC group was to follow the model of the soccer mom.
Mhm.
You remember, soccer was not a big deal in America, just like cricket. Nobody ever knew anything about soccer. And guess what they did? They brought in Pele, but you need that kind of an investment, and you need the leadership to make sure that that investment happens. But I agree with you, Carlton. We also have to do our part, but we need to convince those parents and everybody else as to what this can mean. And I think it starts. We've got to get that advocacy from the politicians in those community, and to get that support. The soccer mom model is the model that we were that what which was our vision,
Yeah, I mean,
I
just to
think
add
one
to
of the
that.
things that it just came to me that one of the things that we probably need to do in the USA is to really separate ourselves from the South Asian community and start having our own leagues.
that came
Start
up.
having a
No,
start
well,
having a
actually,
competing.
Carlton, that's
Yes,
actually how cricket is set up in the United States. The
yes.
leagues, the Caribbean people playing in their leagues, and the South Asians playing in their leagues. What is interesting, because we are our Caribbean people coming to this country at the turn of the 20th century, right? They were the ones that revamped the game of cricket in the United States, come here to play the game they grew up loving, and started playing and forming clubs and leagues. Because look, for example, I'll give you an example. The great George Headley came and played cricket in New York in the 1920s before he played for the West Indies. You know, there were cricket clubs here. Marcus Garvey, cricket. There used to be these big cricket matches in the Bronx, and Garvey would be present at the games, right?
The first international cricket match Basil was played
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
US.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about
Yeah.
because that was in the 1800s, but in the turn of the 20th century, it's the Caribbean immigrants that revived the game, and so on, and it continued. But what we did not do, we continued on this corrigo, so to speak, trajectory. When many of us would say, because like when I came here and I started playing, my first thing, because growing up in Guyana, we had Case Cup in our premier cricket competition, Case Cup, which was the first division, North Coast second division, White Cup third division. And I said, why we got all these leagues? Let's try and formulate one league. And I'm not the only one. Many of those who have experienced that in the Caribbean nation were saying the same thing. Let's have one league and division. So we got the real serious guys playing in fourth division, and the guys who just want to play cricket for the fun of it, they would be in the lower divisions and so on, right? And it was like pulling teeth. I could tell you the first meeting I attended, because I've been advocating it when I was the treasurer of the Brooklyn League. In my first meeting, I raised the issue because I had gotten a little blueprint from a Bajan guy about how we could go about doing it. And I raised it to our committee. I said, because there were two leagues in Brooklyn, the American League and the Brooklyn League. I said, can we go and talk to the American League about us joining forces? And the guy, one of your countrymen, Carlton, tell me, Butcher, you chat nonsense, right?
Yeah,
I
and
know,
Basil,
but here, this is to show you. A few weeks later, he's umpiring a game, and we were in talks with another league about joining up. Word got wrong, and the vice president of the American League approached him and said, "Why y'all didn't come to us? We would have loved to join up." So all these opportunities have been missed, and so this is where we are today.
the thing is, what I think the best way to bring the unity among the Caribbean people and to set up a league for Caribbean people and to set up an organization is to do like what CARICOM do. You just rotate the presidency. So everybody knows that their countryman is going to be the president for a year. So 1 year you have a Barbadian president, 1 year a Jamaican president, 1 year a Leeward Islands president, and you rotate it. And so let's see if that will help in bringing the people together. I want
Yeah.
to ask you, Mr. Vincent, Mr. Adams, is this situation likely to happen in Canada that is now happening in the USA, as we are seeing an influx of South Asians into Canada?
Same situation.
Of course, I don't know much about what's happening in Canada, but I mean, I believe as long as you have, and I hate to, I can't find any way better to put it, the Indian dominance. And by the way, even within the South Asian community,
They fight.
for whatever reason, and listen, I have no apologies for what I say. I have no racial bone in me. My mother is Indian, by the way.
Yeah.
My father is black. Okay, but it's just the Indian dominance. For example, we have changed like over, I think it's like 5 CEOs within a short period of time, and the last CEO was removed, a guy by the name of Dr. Noor from Afghanistan. One of the most, when I mean, the guy was impressive, but he would not go along with them, so they got rid of him. And some of the things that they told him, he could not. They didn't even want him to speak in his native language. They didn't want him to pray on the ground when he was around. They just wanted him to shed his identity as an Afghan, because they said that the Indian community was kind of upset and concerned that he was behaving like an Afghanistan, meeting with his own Afghanistan people. And he must not even mention diversity, and so those are the kinds of things that he suffered. He suffered just being in Afghanistan. One of the things they told him that they have problems with Pakistanis, and he cannot, as CEO, cannot allow them to interfere with their
Correct.
cricket. So again, even within that South Asian community, you find this Indian intention to dominate, and I don't know what the reason is, but that's the reality. And it's interesting that you raised that idea, Carlton, because in when this has all been happening over the past years, that idea came up also. That suggestion that you form a parallel organization to USAC, and if the Indians want to dominate that, that's fine. But you form like a Caribbean type of a USAC, and to get a separate body sanctioned by the ICC. But that suggestion came up, and I like your idea too, in terms of getting us to cooperate and unite with each other, is to rotate the chairperson, if ever that comes to fruition.
Thank you very much. I want to ask 2 questions. Let's ask Mr. Adams, because as someone who was high up in the US government and a sport-loving person, how difficult is it to get cricket accepted by the university and now becomes a part of the NCAA? And Basil, question is, were there any benefit derives from Major League Cricket? So go ahead first, Mr. Adams. I'm just asking questions from the chat. Those are not my questions.
Oh, this, as a matter of fact, this year was discussed again in this committee, and the whole intent was, again, we were depending on that leadership of the board to implement those programs, because what we did is gave them the constitution and a broad framework, and they were supposed to go and implement those programs. Patricia and I had individual conversation with the chairperson of USAC, advising them to do exactly what you're saying in the cities, primary and secondary schools, getting cricket in their curriculum, and then going into universities and colleges. And it's not, of course, I've dealt with these universities also as sponsoring a lot of these universities in their science programs, etc. And those people, and they play a lot of softball and everything else, but it's introducing that cricket. They know nothing about it, so we've got to do the groundwork, and they would be willing. We know especially college students, They've got a very inquisitive mind, and you go with something as new as this, that's it's gonna catch on. And then the other thing, that is why the 28th Olympics was so important, because here it was that you're gonna have a United States cricket team that the world is gonna be looking at, and more importantly, Americans are gonna be seeing, and they're gonna be saying, hey, I never knew that this exists, but they're gonna be rooting for that team, because we always felt that cricket, especially, and I think they're going into the Olympics with it might be a T10 or T12. But cricket, we thought that we will be competing at T20 with baseball. We thought it was a more exciting game. So those are I have no doubts whatsoever that if it was introduced, and it was introduced properly to universities and high schools, etc., it was going to be accepted and accommodated as part of the program.
Thank you. Basil, was Major League Cricket has been a benefit to USA?
No, none whatsoever. Major League Cricket, I'll give you. Major League Cricket is similar to what the North American Soccer League was in the mid to late 70s, when they brought in Pele, Beckenbauer, and all of them. They had these nice big crowds, except Major League Cricket not getting that. They had these nice big crowds because these were the best players, the greatest players, the player like Pele and so on. But you can't start nothing in the United States. The soccer thing is an example. That withered away, and then they had to go to the grassroots, right? So hence what Vincent spoke about earlier about the soccer moms. Today in the United States, more young people in particularly in the suburbs, etc., play soccer more than any other sport, right? Because of that, soccer also becomes even more so in the college setting. But although it was being played before at the university level, but even more so in the college setting, is some as Vincent said earlier. That's the things that we were saying. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We have the experience of soccer in the United States. That is the pathway we have to do with cricket, and bringing an alien sport, so to speak, into the USA sporting ecosystem. We have to go from the grassroots, schools, the young people, and get them inculcated into the sport, and it becomes something. You go all around, you see the youngsters playing the game, and it's not for. And I could tell you this from my experience, having dealt with people who have no connection to cricket. Americans were so fascinated. We playing in the park, and they walking through the park, and they would stop and say, man, what's this game? And they asking us questions and so on. I remember an experience. We went to California to play a women's tournament, and as we coming back, all of us in the same polo shirt. I'm in the line, and this white guy and his teenage daughter in the line too. And he said, who are you guys, man? And we said, women's cricket team. And I pointed to his daughter. I said, we want youngsters like you, young girls like you, to come and play cricket. And she smiled at the dad, said, you see, you will be able to play cricket. And I always felt the women's cricket had a great opportunity to grow the sport, because women don't have the same amount of sporting outlets as men. And unfortunately, I wrote these things in my report as a coach to the USAC, that we need to invest in the women, because in my opinion, our women cricket team at the time had a chance to be a top 10 team in the world. We had some seriously good women cricketers. Several of them had played for the West Indies and that were still young, and several of them had played for the respective territories in the Caribbean. It was a laden Caribbean team, right? Athletic. We had some women from South Africa who had played good cricket in South Africa, but it was not invested upon.
Thank you, Basil. I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, for your final comments. So I'm going to ask you to prepare while I address Cheeseman.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of persons who sometimes come in this community, and they love to get the opportunity to have a one-up on me. And sometimes they don't really do their research, their homework. So he's saying that I am instigating segregation, and that makes no sense. Well, number one, I am not instigating segregation at all. I'm saying that we need to have our own league because currently, if Cheeseman understand what is going on in the USA, as you guys put forward so elegantly, is that we are already segregated if he wants to use segregation in that term.
Correct.
So you are going to form your own league that you can now compete and have something to negotiate with because you are now putting forward something that is comparable, that is of value, just like how you have the WBC in boxing, just like how you have the WBA in boxing, just like how you have before the NFL was united into one league. You used to have two different leagues, but
Mhm.
they then have power and authority to come together. And so, Cheeseman, you need to check out what is going on in England also. And you need to research how Shoaib Bashir become a member of the England cricket team. And you need to
Correct.
check out how many players from the Indian Community League in England that are now being drafted into county cricket. Those players would not have gotten a chance to play county cricket if they never form their own local league. So you need to
Mhm.
check out those things,
Yes.
Cheeseman. Right, Cheeseman? Before you come at me. And the last thing, Cheeseman, is that mainstream media is a dying breed. People are watching YouTube on television more than mainstream media, and a lot of cricket, live cricket, is on YouTube. And if persons really want to watch cricket on TV, they can find it. Right, Cheeseman? Be careful when you come at me. Basil, your final comment.
Yeah. On I would want to expand on what you said in terms of the Caribbean people, and others like that, to form a cricket entity, starting with the leagues in which we play in. The thing is, what we have to do, we have to professionalize those leagues. I don't talk about paying money. I'm talking about the way in which the league is structured. So it will be a place where a player can develop their game, is professionally run, and promote the game. So we come together to form that, to show to the others, this is how cricket has to be developed and promoted in this country, and create that example. And I think um, that is something worth exploring. And I think that's something we need to really look around the United States of America as Caribbean people to look to explore to do that.
Thank you. And before you come in, Mr. Vincent, I just want to make one final point because I'm not talking about segregation here. Because you see, when we develop, if the West Indies people develop their league and it providing a better value than what is now operating, then we will have persons wanting to join the league. And then we
Yes,
are going to say that, listen me, these are our rules here. These are the laws that you go by. And this is what we expect you to contribute. And we at no time allow them, though, to be so influx our league that they take it over. We
let,
must limit their participation, but
and
we
let me say this.
welcome their participation.
Let me just add on to that, Carlton. In creating this structure, exactly, yes, you will have others. And I could tell you this, if we create this structure as I described, we will have white kids joining to come to learn to play cricket. We will get other Asian kids, not Indian or Pakistani. We may get Pakistani kids to want to come to learn to play the game, because what we are doing is creating that environment for young people to come and learn the game also, right? So once you create that professionalized environment, we will get youngsters of all ethnicities wanting to come.
Yes, Basil. Mr. Vincent, you're going to get your chance. And, but Basil, I want to tell you, Basil, I don't grounds on meal. I don't grounds on meal any at all. and I don't want any male grounds on me. That's how I am. But the
Mhm.
comment you just made a while ago, if you're a nearby boss, I kiss you. Go ahead, Mr. Vincent.
Well, no, I really enjoyed this conversation here today, Carlton. But you see, I wouldn't even blame the USAC for where we are today. I totally put the blame on the
Mhm.
ICC. This didn't start happening today. Like I went through the vision of the ICC in that group that I was on, the intent to start with grassroots cricket. And I know people who are already started doing that. My very good friend, late and Basil friend, late Keith
Mhm.
Aaron. Keith Aaron had already started. Every weekend, Keith used to go out into the Bronx, one of the disadvantaged neighborhoods in New York, and teach cricket in high schools. But so the vision was there by the ICC when he put it together, and now it was all left to the organization that we put together. Except that we never expected to have the kind of people entering the organization to lead it as we have. But it was brought to the ICC's attention from this time it started happening, and they just sat back and just let it fester. And that is why we are today. If they had taken action since 2019 or whenever this all started, to say, here, something, you're not going in the direction that we directed you to go, and we're going to put a stop to it. It's only because now they're finding that the participation of the US in the Olympics in 2028, it's in jeopardy because the USOP has already warned USAC that they're dysfunctional, and it's going to be difficult for them to make it. So that's what's threatening the ICC, because this is the ICC's only hope to get cricket in the US, because they believe that this is the next market. So I put the blame fully on the ICC. But in terms of the suggestions that we came up here, guys, I think it has been very, very fruitful. Great suggestions, and I like the idea of forming a separate organization. It came up before, and I think we ought to start exploring that. Us in the cricketing community for the US.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I really enjoyed the discussion. Also, I appreciate you all being here this morning, and it was a wonderful show. Thank you all who have joined us. Thank you all for your comments. And as usual, I was not able to read all the comments, but I did capture some of them, and we expect to take this discussion a little further because Mr. Jack Francis wants to join us, and so we'll talk to him at another day as we'll put out the invitation to other persons who also want to join us. But we expect to hear from Mr. Jack Francis soon. So take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and I'll be back tomorrow morning to discuss the first test match and the comments of Ruston Chain.